The Muslim dog hate scandal. We're going to talk a little bit more about that this morning. Should we give the pride flag federal protection? And how the fat got into Fat Tuesday. Yeah, welcome to the Jay Sheldon Show. We are live on Rumble, and I am trying an experiment this morning. I hope it works. We'll see what's going on. I am using what is called Rumble Studio. You don't really need to know a lot about that, but it's a different way of uploading the stream. So if we have problems, then we'll know we have to go back to the old way. But for now, we'll see what happens. Let's pop right along. Good morning, Maryland. Be blessed. Praise the Lord. And Danny, AJ still dances to the intro music. Do I still have that? No, I don't. Okay. Either that or happy that it's sunny and going to be 70 degrees. 70 degrees in February. Wow. Good morning, everybody. All right, Danny and AJ and the gang, welcome into the show. Great to have you along for the ride. You know what? Because everything has to be in place before I hit that roll opening button. Uh, I basically am all set to go, and I'm just sitting here waiting. And I do exactly the same thing. I'm jamming to the tunes also. So we're doing the same thing basically. Oh man, I yeah, I know. I have to admit that because it's just the truth. All right, before we get started, I want to tell you about Blackout Coffee because that is the coffee that runs this show. It's right here in this Jay Sheldon Show mug. By the way, did you get yours yet? mm. Oh, man. That is pitch black espresso. And that is, in my humble opinion, the best roast there is. You pick your own roast. Head over there to Blackout Coffee. Use the link down there in our show notes. You just have to click on the show notes and expand that down. You'll see it. It's the first or second link. And what you got to find yourself getting is a coffee that believes in our conservative values. They're an American company. They support the First and Second Amendment, the right to life, our military. You can actually, there's a way you look on the site and you'll see a place that you can actually donate coffee to our troops. First responders, police, fire, ambulance folks, all those good people. Blackout Coffee's right there in the fight with us. And they work with local co ops and American farmers to grow the best beans on the planet. And then they roast your beans that you order only after you place your order. That's how freshly roasted they are. In a lot of cases, with most of their most popular roasts, you can also option to have them ground for you, so no more excuses. Head over there, use the code J20 for 20% off your first order at Blackout Coffee. Flavored instant coffee pods, ground, roast, beans, they got it all, and it simply is the best. Blackout Coffee, we thank you folks for helping to support the show. What do they got? Oh, yeah, check this out. A President's Day celebration. For $50 spend, you get 15% off, which is a hell of a deal. $75, you get 25% off. And you spend 100 or more, that's a lot of coffee, but it's worth it. You get a 30% discount. How about that? And you don't need a code, it'll just appear there. What a deal. Blackout Coffee, simply the best. We love it. All right, shall we? By the way, the thumbnail tonight, that was Miko. That was a picture of our little Miko, who is here with us in the studio again because it's Chinese New Year and the fireworks are still going on and she is still scared to death. By the way, also tomorrow morning at sunrise begins the holy month of Ramadan in the Muslim faith. So, a good Ramadan to all those who are of the faith. If you are of the faith, you may or may not agree with the things I'm going to say in our opening story here, but you have that right. You knock yourself out, the freedom of religion. Just don't, like George Carlin said, everybody has a right to walk in whatever shoes they want to walk in. Just don't make me wear your shoes. But leave it to the Democrats and their regime media cohorts. They take the 1% side of a 99 to 1% issue. The whole bunch of them, including Gavin Hairstyle and Jake Tapper, got into the high dungeon the other day because you and me normal Americans pretty much rejected the demand of radical Muslims. And I make that distinction. Folks, you know that I do not live in America. I am the biggest patriot on the planet. I'm right there with you in the fight. We cover America. And I am an American. Well, they call it an expat, but I prefer patriot, a pat. I live in Malaysia, which is a Muslim country. However, we have a huge, now it's like about 65% Muslim here. So Ramadan is huge. We have an enormous Chinese population and also equally large Indian population, Indian from India, and then a mix of what they call Lain Lain, which is Malay for other. Anyway, obviously, Ramadan is huge here. Now, most Muslims who are kind of moderate, central, they still have their faith. They believe in that. They pray 5 times a day. Great, no problem. Just like I said, don't make me walk in your shoes. That's not my faith. I am a Christian. Fine. It is not that when you think, before I moved here, I heard, oh, Malaysia's an Islamic country. Yeah, so I had all the same fears as everybody else did. I was wondering what I'm going to walk into. Now, yes, you do see some women wearing the full, Ninja Turtle burqas with just the eyes showing. But in most cases, not. In fact, a great number of Islamic women, especially the young ones here, choose not to wear a hijab at all. They go what's called free hair. Many Islamic people are fine with dogs. They don't have a problem. There is a process you have to go through if you touch a dog because apparently it's unclean. But the radical morons who subscribe to this faith of Islam are the ones who are mucking it up for everybody else. So in spite of what I'm going to say in just a minute here, you got to keep in mind there are a lot of moderate Muslims who have no problem with dogs, who have no problems with a lot of, Sharia law, that kind of stuff. Danny said, wow, is this true? Alexa said only 14,618 Americans live in Malaysia. You know what? That number actually surprises me. I wouldn't have put the word only there. I think that number is huge. I know about 4 of them. No, seriously. I mean, granted, admittedly, I don't get out much. But the thing is that, okay, let me get into this a little bit. We'll get to the dog story in a minute. When I live in a foreign country, I like to actually live in a foreign country. There are a lot of expats, and let me tell you, I'm not one of them, but expats here make a ton of money. They are paid ungodly salaries. If they're living here and they have to pay the price in Malaysian ringgit, which is our dollar here, at the moment, it's somewhere over 4 to 1. So every $1 is worth well over 4 Malaysian ringgit, which is why, by the way, when you make a purchase or you donate to me on PayPal, your $50 becomes well over 200 plus ringgit, almost 250 ringgit, which is enormously valued to me. And I thank you for it from the bottom of my heart. Truly, I do. You know who you are, and thank you for that. It really goes a long way to help support this show and keep it free because it costs money, quite a bit actually, to put this thing together every day, Monday through Friday. Anyway, they make a ton. I do not. Trust me, I don't. I work for a relatively small visual effects company that does film and television and content. And yeah, I make okay money, but trust me, it's just a living typical Malaysian wage. And a lot of these expats have this, okay, you're going to hate me for this, expats. They've got this I'm better than you attitude. I don't know whether it comes from because you make so much money, or maybe you think, oh, I'm from a Western country, the UK, Australia, the US. So, of course, we're first world countries. We're far better than you. I don't know where the attitude comes from, but it's absolute bullshit. It's unbelievably bad, and it permeates through the expat community so much so that even when lowly me, who I don't live in some high rise, rich area condo, I have a little suburban link house. I don't own it, I rent. I eat at the local eateries and Chinese and mamak stalls and things, Indian restaurants, the cheap, good food of Malaysia. There's a lot of it. So, I'm not out at the fancy Wagyu steak houses every night, having all kinds of expensive drinks. I don't do that. I live the life of a Malaysian in the country that I've been now in for 23 years. I moved here in 2002, haven't been back since. So, what would that be? 24 years? Something like that. I love it here. It's great. The love of my life is here and is Malaysian. And hopefully, this is where I will live and die. If I ever have to come back to America, that's fine too. In the meantime, certainly, I'm keeping an eye on things. It is, and I've said this often, it is very interesting when you step outside of the country and you look back in. It is an entirely different perspective on what goes on in our country than when you are living in it. It really is. It's rather refreshing. All right, having said all that, let's get on with this story because some of these radical Muslims who are trying to rid us of our puppies, and they're not going to get away with it. Now, given the choice between Fido and Muslims who hate canines, I'm going to make that caveat there, the American people came down four-squared in favor of Lassie and Fido, which is why you do not ask a question if you don't want to hear the answer. No one, not the frigid white women descendants of the pilgrims who landed at Plymouth Rock, nor the newest refugees from aspiring Muslim caliphate, gets to tell us we cannot have our dogs, okay? Mess with the pups, and it's on. Not like Donkey Kong on, but like Gates of freaking Vienna on, okay? John Wick, as I mentioned yesterday, would be the likely solution. There was so much tiresome posting in defense of Moorish prerogatives when all this came down. Of course, it was a radical Muslim who started it. It always is. Some New York City green-red non-player character, improbably named Nurdin Kizwani, tweeted, "Finally, New York City is coming to Islam. Dogs definitely have a place in society, just not as indoor pets. Like we've said all along, they are unclean." And when America responded with the appropriate contempt, she retweeted several like-minded tools urging the banning of dogs and, of course, blaming the Zionists. Meeker, bud. Stop digging. Now, a lot of this Heritage America stuff is absolute nonsense. Immigrants who come here, they assimilate, they join us as Americans, and they are Americans. But skeevy foreigners like this immigrant from imaginary Palestine who come here and immediately start demanding that we Americans who've been here more than 5 minutes conform to their alien culture and religion, well, frankly, you can go pound sand. And to facilitate the sand pounding, maybe you just ship them back to whatever sandy desert they blew out of, where they can pound sand to their heart's content. Representative Randy Fine, who often puts the loose in loose cannon, decided to weigh in. If they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. And he was right. If they force us to choose, we will choose our dogs. You see, nobody gets to tell us we can't have dogs. Nobody. But that was exactly what Nerdine was saying. She wants dogs declared unclean on behalf of her version of Islam. We prefer live and let live. But she took that off the table. And so now we're going in a different direction. To the shock of absolutely nobody, no significant Democrat has come out against a dog ban. Not one. Not one. They can't possibly push back on one of their constituencies, no matter how insane, no matter how evil it might be. The best regime media could do was to scoff that banning dogs was impractical. That was their best. So we shouldn't be worrying about it happening. Of course, a few years ago, we never worried about boys pretending to be girls, getting a full backing of the Democrat Party when they wanted to invade your daughter's locker room and bathroom, beat her to a pulp on the sports field. We never worried about that, did we? Maybe we should have. There is a huge difference between no, this idea is evil, and you're overreacting because implementing it might be hard. Instead, the usual submissives just raged at the horror of Representative Fine, taken up foreigner Nerdine's challenge. Freshly minted foreign policy prodigy AOC demanded Fine be punished for his brazen refusal to submit. Jake Tapper, fulminating at Representative Fine's tweet, "Disgusting bigotry," he says. Please, Jake, back off. It's time for you to retire. Nobody cares what you have to say anymore. I got to understand how that works, though. I'm presented by someone saying that my dogs are unclean on the basis of Islam. And I don't get to reply, nah, I'm not doing that. I guess if I want to meet Jake's exacting moral standards, not to be confused with his exacting journalistic standards that kept him from pointing out Biden's senility until Grandpa Eggplant was well out of office. And the book deal check cleared too, don't forget that. I'm supposed to accept, submit to the demands of an alien culture that wants to come here and dictate what parts of my culture we Americans can be allowed to keep intact. Well, Jake, that ain't in the cards, babe. Think of me as a bigot, Islamophobic, anything you want, except a vegan. But I am on Teen Wolf. not Team Woke. And of course, Gavin Newsom's social media brain trust had to weigh in. Quote, atrocious words, Randy. Resign now, end quote. I'm very sure Randy will get right in on that, folks. But hey, thanks for the attack fodder. Gavin Newsom sides with creepy American-hating immigrants who thinks dogs are unclean and demand that you give yours up. J.D. Vance sides with you and your puppy. Now, let me be clear about this Muslim dog thing. It's real. How do I know that? Because I live in a Muslim country. I have seen a stray dog laying down, sleeping on the sidewalk, and two young women who are obviously misinformed about their faith walked down the sidewalk and then screamed bloody murder and ran way off out into the street and around the other side so they didn't have to walk by the dog. Vets have been heartwarming stories of the cruelty to dogs they've witnessed, especially overseas. To be fair and honest, the truth is that some Muslims do not consider dogs haram, which is unclean. As I told you in the opening to this segment, they're willing to treat dogs the way civilized people treat dogs. But that doesn't mean that's not a tenet of their faith for a significant portion of the Muslim world. A significant number of Muslims hate dogs. And as has Nerdine, some Muslims who've come into the West have been demanding we accommodate their bigotry against these amazing creatures who love us unconditionally. As does little Miko. Where are you, baby? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Oh, there she is. She's sleeping under the camera. Anyway, we're not submitting on our dogs, or for that matter, booze, or women in burqas. I always giggle at the thought that they contend the guy who wants to cover women's bodies is not your local fanatical imam, but Donald J. Trump. Famous prude. This is our country, invader people, and we gotta like it just the way it is. You want to come here, bring your food. You can keep your weird social pathologies about women and wine and dogs too. All these sincerely held beliefs that you just can't give up, well then, go to hell. And don't let the door hit you on the throne on your way out. The sheer gall of people we allow into this country, or did not illegally or legally, to come here and right away, what do? They start dictating how we need to behave. It's astonishing, especially since we've been to their homelands, and a lot of them are absolute garbage. Trump said it best, shitholes. So here's how it goes. We're not going to accommodate anyone who dislikes dogs for any reason. Our dogs are more exponentially important than the people who hate or dislike dogs. If you think that makes us bad people or bigots or Islamophobics, we are completely indifferent to your opinion. Just like Melanie says, we do not care. If it's a choice between you and Bikey and Barty and Miko, well, Sorry, but that is the easiest call I will ever have to make. Understand, this one is not open for debate. Sure, the Democrats feel free to bring up the no dogs because these aliens will be sad if you're happy. That platform, yeah, we're not going to do that, okay? We're going to keep our dogs like we always have. And if somebody comes to our civilization, he, she, or them is just going to have to respect our pets, or there is going to be trouble. Like I said, John Wick is the moderate position. Hey, what's going on in the chat? Danny, I mean, I can do away with cat banning. I've had a lot of cats in my life. I don't any longer have cats. I like cats. I just don't love cats. Cats aren't exactly clean either. They don't bathe besides licking themselves after licking their buttholes. I can't believe I just read that. Stepping in kitty litter and walking around your couch or bed. Yeah, barf, you're right. Oh, man. All right, I guess since I've stepped in it, I'm going to step in it again. Wake up, New York. Well, maybe not the way you've been used to, because New Yorkers are waking up to the Islamic call to prayer. Look, I don't want this whole show to be anti-Islam. I told you before, I'm not anti-Islam. I'm anti-idiot radical Islam. Okay? We all saw this coming, though. Not because we hate our neighbors, not because we fear prayer. You have religious freedom in this country. But it's because I think we understand history quite well, thank you. We understand symbolism. We understand that culture never collapses all at once. It erodes kind of quietly at first and then louder and louder. A tweet making the rounds this week shows a video of the Islamic call to prayer, the Adhan, echoing through New York City streets at dawn. 5 in the morning, actually, amplified through very loud speakers, projected over neighborhoods that still carry the scars of September 11th, 2001. And that date is living memory for a lot of people. A post on X says, another Adhan blast through the New York City streets. The sound of conquest echoing in New York City right now. The call to prayer being amplified louder and more aggressively as early as 5 a.m., invading homes, neighborhoods, and the once proud skyline where thousands were murdered on 9/11. Just received a new video. The blaring Adhan dominates the streets, forcing every resident, Christian, Jewish, atheist, to hear the declaration of Islamic supremacy multiplied 5 times a day. And unlike leaders like Eric Adams, who greenlit loud broadcasts for Friday in Ramadan, which, by the way, starts tomorrow morning, now the push, under Zohran Mamdani's influence, this isn't religious freedom. It's submission. It's the next stage. They don't need planes anymore. They're conquering you with sound, policy, and silence from those who should be defending our values. New York is falling one little amplified Allah Akbar at a time. That's the tweet. These policies, which are approved by Eric Adams, mosques have been permitted to broadcast the call to prayer publicly on Fridays, which is their version of Christian Sunday, and during Ramadan, which begins now, and special noise variants. Most recently, activists tied to figures like Mandani have pushed for expanded public religious expression framed as equality and inclusion. There's those words again. The U.S., without a doubt, protects religious liberty, and that absolutely includes Muslims. First Amendment, not selective. Should be, should not be. It should absolutely not be selective. But freedom of religion is not the same thing as forced participation in somebody else's religious proclamation. It's not ambient background music. It is a declaration. The phrase Allah Akbar means God is great. It is a theological claim. It's a call to submission. Practicing Muslims perfectly understand this. Not controversial. It's simply a fact. That's what that means. Now, imagine living in Lower Manhattan. Imagine hearing that broadcast before sunrise, rolling over the concrete and glass, over a skyline where nearly 3,000 Americans were murdered in an attack carried out in the name of that same phrase. Context matters. Our memories matter. And if that memory is ingrained in my mind, I can't imagine for where it sits to the people who still, since then, live in that city. We're all told that discomfort equals intolerance. Objection equals hate. If you even question the wisdom of amplifying the adhan over public neighborhoods, you are somehow anti-Muslim, which doesn't strike me as being ridiculous. It's simply lazy thinking. The issue is not private worship. You have every right to worship in whatever way you choose. Yes, even if you are a Satanist and that's your faith, you have a right to it. I vehemently disagree with it, but you have every right to it. When City Hall makes a policy decision that allows one religious proclamation to be projected unwillingly into other people's homes, that is no longer a choice. That is just no longer about free exercise. Cultural dominance. No one would accept a church blasting the Apostles' Creed over city blocks at 5 o'clock in the morning, would you? You wouldn't tolerate a synagogue projecting the Shema across neighborhoods every day through the municipal permission. Noise ordinance exists for a reason. So why the carve-outs? Riddle me that. I think I've done enough damage on that topic for one day. Oh, did you hear about this absolute knucklehead moron? Well, the only weird thing, I suppose, is he wasn't trans. U.S. Capitol Police have released the identity of the man who rushed at the Capitol with a loaded weapon. About noon yesterday, A man carrying a weapon rushed towards the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C., quickly intercepted by officials, and then taken into custody with apparently no injuries reported. Moments later, an X post following up announced the temporary closure of the nearest intersections as they looked into the incident, and they reopened that area about 3 hours later. Maryland Avenue temporarily closed between 1st and 3rd Street Southwest while we investigate. Well, now the U.S. Capitol Police have shared a press release with more information on the suspect, identified as, 18-year-old Carter Camacho from Smyrna, Georgia. Arrested afternoon on the Lower West Terrace at the Capitol. The release adds that Camacho, in addition to the loaded gun, had multiple rounds of ammunition and a tactical-style vest. Next, Capitol Police also found the suspect's vehicle, an SUV, parked nearby on Maryland Avenue, inside a helmet and a gas mask. This could have gone south and sour really fast. The release continues, thanks to the quick action of the officers, no one was hurt. Suspect arrested for unlawful activities, carrying a rifle without license, unregistered firearm, unregistered ammunition. You have to register your ammunition? Really? According to the Capitol Police release, Chief Michael Sullivan spoke during a press conference Tuesday, and let's see what he had to say.
Absolutely. So just afternoon today, a gentleman parked in the 100 block of Maryland Avenue in a white Mercedes SUV. He exited the vehicle. With a shotgun and began running towards the Capitol up the walkway just behind me. And as he approached the Capitol, police officers observed this individual, challenged him, and ordered him to drop the weapon and get on the ground, which he did comply with. He was then taken into custody by United States Capitol Police.
A couple more questions. Just in terms of the circumstances, did the individual say
Sorry, you can't hear the question.
of his arrest, and also how close was he to potentially pulling the trigger?
He immediately complied from what we can see right now. I haven't been briefed on any utterances that he made during the arrest.
All right. The sound is too bad there. I'm not going to play that whole thing. Anyway, he'd not been made aware of any utterances the suspect might have made. Said, just last summer, we had an active threat exercise on the west front of the Capitol, very location where today's officers stopped the suspect. Unknown to the Capitol Police, this Camacho guy, and they are continuing the investigation. Like I said, at least he wasn't trans, because that'll be the next thing. Honest to God. Schumer. Good old Chucky Schumer. What the hell is wrong with you, man? Chuck Schumer is aiming to give the gay pride flag federal protection. Look at this graphic. Okay, now, Chuck Schumer is just pandering, obviously. He's always been really, really good at that. And his latest act of overt pandering to the LGBT, SWTF, barbecue, blah, blah, etc. plus community, certainly gonna misfire, that's for damn sure. May well earn him in the anger of everybody who's ever served under the flag of the United States, and there are a lot of them. The latest act of pandering, well, this moron Senator Schumer is pushing a bill that will place the pride flag And by the way, can you go back to that picture? There we go. That's not the pride flag. That is a bastardization to try and be inclusive, that suddenly everybody, the rainbow flag in and of itself is the original pride flag. They added all that triangle, pink and white and blue, transgender, brown, black crap down the road while they were completely mucking up the movement in any way they can. Now, if that's not the dumbest idea of the year, it'll do until a better candidate comes along. New York Senator Schumer filed a bill to give the pride flag the same legal standing as the U.S. flag and military banners. Very long odds this thing faces in the Republican-controlled Congress. Dispute over Trump's admin's decision to remove an LGBTQ pride flag from the Stonewall Monument in New York City. Schumer said Stonewall is sacred ground and Congress must act now to permanently protect the pride flag and what it stands for, granting federal protections that would allow it to be flown outside of government buildings. Schumer said in a statement, Trump's hateful crusade must end. The very core of American identity is liberty and justice for all. And that is what this legislation would protect. Each national park's ability to make their own decisions about what flag can be flown. Long odds, my friend. That doesn't, in fact, even really cover it. This bill will not go past the first Senate waste receptacle it encounters, dumped right in the bin, which is wholly appropriate. You look back at what the minority leader in the Senate is trying to do, he is in effect placing a never-changing flag of activists on par with our national flag. And we are not going to tolerate that. It ain't going to happen. Live with it, Schumer. You're a moron. Let's pick on the New York Times a little bit, shall we? Oh man, this is incredible. A New York Times hit piece on ICE facilities' medical care is chock full of lies, according to DHS. Dr. Sean Conley, DHS Chief Medical Officer, told news outlets, these allegations of illegal aliens being denied proper medical care in ICE custody are absolutely false. Hit piece in the Times claiming medical care provided at ICE detention centers is poor, riddled with falsehoods, DHS said. The New York Times on last Saturday ran through claims that several illegal aliens did not receive proper care. Aliens forced to wait in long periods of time to be lucky enough to see a doctor. Diabetes patients not getting regular insulin. Detainees facing various other medical care failures. And according to DHS, those claims, absolute bullshit, although they used a nicer word. These allegations, is from DHS, of illegal aliens being denied proper medical care in ICE custody are absolutely false. It is both policy and long-standing practice for aliens to receive timely and appropriate medical care from the moment they enter ICE custody. That includes medical, dental, women's health, and mental services. Any needed follow-up medical appointments as well as 24-hour emergency care. The Times claiming that medical staff at Dilley Immigration Processing Center in Texas downplayed the concerns Kylan Domelis, Valero Marcano, and Steven Jose Arrieta Prieto had about the medical conditions of their 18-month-old daughter, Amelia Isabella Arrieto Valero. What is with the names, folks? Biden admin released the Venezuelan family back in 2024 after they had entered the country illegally. Marcano and Prieto claim, apparently through a lawyer, they're illegals. They have a lawyer. Medical staff delayed until Arrieto Valero developed a fever that allegedly lasted 19 days and caused her to lose 2 pounds. According to DHS, after Arrieto Valero developed a respiratory condition, she immediately received proper medical care and was admitted to the Methodist Children's Hospital in San Diego, Texas, for treatment. San Antonio, I should say. This piece goes on and on about all these different incidents, the Times says, and DHS has a counter for every single one of them. Pure, unadulterated New York Times bullshit. Yep. Oh, man. Another blue state just lost another company. Bye-bye, boys. Have fun storming the castle. Have you ever seen The Princess Bride? If not, don't do anything else. When this show is over, go watch The Princess Bride. One of my all-time favorite films. All right. Palantir, one of the two most interesting defense contractors we have in the U.S. Also the latest multi-million-dollar firm to give Blue State the corporate middle finger and make the move to redder climates. Twice. Co-founded in 2003 by the libertarian conservative-minded billionaire Peter Thiel, CEO of Palantir, Alex Karp, says the company builds software fortresses for the West. Does that through AI-driven software focus, among other things, on defense, intelligence, manufacturing decision-making. Company's Gotham platform provides high-speed battlefield management, counterterrorism, targeting, sensor orchestration, and situational awareness. It's a lot. And apparently, since Palantir does not build flashy fighters or ships, it might be one of the most important firms you've never heard of. And apparently the company likes it that way. But here's where things get a little funny. And another thing, the other upstart contractor worth your attention is Anduril. I never heard of it. Palantir I've heard of. Anduril never heard of. Both companies specialize in delivering cutting-edge products quickly and at prices meant to undercut establishment dinosaurs. So good luck with that. Thiel and Company published Palantir in Palo Alto, California, smack dab in the middle of the Bay Area's fabled Silicon Valley. But by 2020, the company leadership had pretty much had enough. Karp publicly vented his frustration with their monoculture and increasing intolerance for anything other than the most left-wing views. Karp frequently mentioned the Bay Area's stifling, over ideological environment was completely out of step with the company. Didn't even look for tax incentives, anything like that. Basically, leadership just picked a place they thought they would enjoy a little more diversity and pulled up stakes, moved to Pyongyang. I know, I'm kidding. Karp picked a spot that proved almost as stifling, Denver, Colorado. It was 50 miles or so north. Should have warned him. Silicon Valley unicorn pulling up anchor in Northern California, seeking refuge at the edge of the Rocky Mountains doesn't happen every day, especially in the middle of a pandemic. With another tech company setting up an office in Denver, the state could become a magnet for Silicon Valley firms. Palantir's announcement must have seemed like an unanticipated gift left on Colorado's doorstep. Palantir lasted 17 years in the Bay Area before management said, that's it, that's enough, moved to what they had hoped would be more open pastures. It took just under 6 years for Thiel, Karp, and the rest of the corporate leadership to get their absolute fill of Denver's Democratic-dominated combination of California groupthink and Detroit-level city management. Actually, I'm probably being a bit unfair to Detroit. So, Palantir succinctly announced yesterday, we have moved our headquarters to Miami, Florida. Absent all the hand-wringing that preceded their exit from Silicon Valley, and something tells me they're likely going to be staying in Miami for a long time to come. Once again, bye-bye, boys. All right, got one more for you. Hey, who put the fat in Fat Tuesday? And why people go absolutely freaking nuts at Mardi Gras. Before we do that, what did Danny say? Haley from Bongino Report never saw it until last year, and she wasn't even that into it. To that I say, inconceivable. Oh, I see what you do there. Really, Haley never seen Princess Bride? Wow. You killed my father. You have to die. All right. It is actually a legal holiday in Louisiana. School kids, day off, businesses closed, not in recognition of any famous person, any famous event. Louisiana celebrating Fat Tuesday. And as they say in New Orleans, laissez les bon temps rouler, or let the good times roll. Fat Tuesday, Mardi Gras. Mardi is Tuesday in French, and gras means fat. Tradition that marks the last day before the Catholic Lenten season begins on Ash Wednesday, when fasting and its build up to Holy Week. You know, it's amazing. Chinese New Year, the lunar calendar started Tuesday, yesterday. Ramadan starts today, and Holy Week is coming up. All of them are kind of mushing in at the same time. Normally they're separated by a little bit, but not this year. Mardi Gras is an ancient holiday which began in Europe, goes all the way back to the Romans, and then adopted by early Christians. Actually, a lot more than a single day. The Carnival season actually kicks off on the Feast of the Epiphany, January 6th, and goes through Fat Tuesday. In Brazil, Carnival, a 24-hour-a-day, balls-to-the-wall, absolute nightmare that will either kill you or cure you. On the other hand, most American cities only celebrate Fat Tuesday. That's pretty much it. Food, big part of Fat Tuesday. King cake, a staple in Louisiana at Mardi Gras. That dough, similar like that of a Danish, stuffed with fruit, cream cheese, cinnamon sugar. They're actually delicious. I've had one before. It is amazing. Dates back to early Christians who celebrated and honored the three wise men by creating and eating a cake in the shape of a crown. Chicago, every bakery worth its salt makes Pixis. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's a jelly-filled Bismarck, fruit, whipped cream. Wow. Customers line up before 4 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. One of the oldest bakeries in Chicago, Weber's Bakery. Having worked at the family-owned bakery since he was a child, Michael Weber says the popularity for the big event continues to grow every year. Gumbo, jambalaya, etouffee, other traditional Cajun dishes roll out for the feasting in New Orleans. What makes this holiday unique in the Crescent City mix of cultures that come together for an experience that really is like pretty much nothing else. French influence dominates, largely because Catholicism was the reason for the holiday in the first place, but also in the mix, Haitian voodoo, African animism, evidence many of the colorful costumes, figures in the parades. New Orleans' black community has been an important participant in these festivities ever since the early 19th century, back that far. Certain colors are also important to the carnival. I did not know this. Purple, green, and gold. Synonymous with Mardi Gras, the trio of colors dates back to the 1892 Rex Parade. Historians say purple was chosen because it's one of the rarest and most prestigious dyes colors of all time. In heraldry, prestige required both metal and non-metal colors. Gold, representing the king, fulfilled the metal requirement, and green symbolized wealth. I have never spent a moment of time in New Orleans. I think I would love to see that city. But apparently it's the place to go to have a good time. Bourbon Street, 13-block stretch of high-energy nightlife. Certainly Fat Tuesday is the day to be there if you like craziness. This new year promises to be probably one of the most pivotal in our recent history. Midterm elections going to determine if we continue to move forward or slide back into the usual typical bullshit lawfare, impeachment, toleration of fraud, encouragement, in fact. So enjoy the holidays while you can. And I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day while I can. We're done. Thank you, folks, for popping by. Really appreciate it. Please check out our sponsors, Patriot Mobile, NordVPN. We've got Blackout Coffee, of course. Make a purchase, help support the show. If you'd just like to make a donation, there's a link to our PayPal, which is also there. You can do it right there. Just click on that and send whatever you'd like. We appreciate it. It helps us support the show and keep it free. That's it. We're done. I will see you all again. Oh, let's do it tomorrow, shall we? For the Thursday edition of the Jay Sheldon Show. Dan Bongino is next.